My name is Cyrus Wadia, and I'm the Vice President of Social Strategy for a company called Gum Gum. We're a computer vision company in Santa Monica, actually. What we do is we look at billions of images online and on social and everywhere else every single month, and then use image recognition and artificial intelligence to understand, to help make sense of those images. What are they saying, who's saying them, and what is the messaging around that? Now, we were best known for creating a field of advertising actually called in-image advertising, which embeds contextually relevant ads within images over the internet. So that's been our bread and butter, and that's sort of how the company started. What I'm going to show you guys today is the social arm of the company, which is a platform called Gum Gum Visual Intelligence. And really, there's a tool, but I want to really talk about how to get the most out of the visual web. What is it? Where's the true sort of power around it? And then how can you actually put it into use, monetize it for your business, either create revenue or create cost savings. In social, it's no longer this ethereal, I don't know how many guys were in the ROI breakout earlier, but it's not the notion of likes and engagements, what does that get me as far as actual revenue results? There is a very tangible and systematic way to sort of tie all this stuff together. So I'm going to show you 5 different ways and probably a little bit more about how to sort of do that, okay? Now, the idea is that, so Gum Gum Visual Intelligence is the platform I'm going to show you. And the idea is that we capture every image on social media in real time. So within 5 seconds or less of any of us from around the world posting an image of a brand, we're going to actually capture and then show you who are the people that are posting it, what's the profile and behavior of those people, and then allow you to take whatever action that you want. Okay, now the premise is this. Social media is largely image-driven, not text-driven. Right? There's almost 3.5 billion images a day posted on social media. And the vast majority of them, 85% of those images there's no text. And by no text, I mean there's no hashtag of the brand. So whatever companies you represent or whatever your clients are, there's no caption, there's no hashtag, there's no mention of those brands. And people are authentically posting them. That is the social media sort of world that we live in today. And that's the blind spot that advertisers have. They're not seeing that. If you've ever heard of a social listening tool, have you guys heard of social listening? Yeah. So those guys are all the same in that they need some sort of semantic signal, some text to find that content in the first place. And that's the problem that at least we are trying to effectuate. I'm not going to pretend like we're the only players in town, but we certainly been doing this for about 8 years, so we're really, that's all we do. We don't care about text, we just care about the images that are out there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate this whole point through a social audit we did at Little Caesars. This is not proprietary, this is social media, right? So we're able to capture, and I'm going to show you actual hard data for Little Caesars and one of its competitors, and show you the opportunities that a brand like this has. Now, I know this is a $1 billion brand, and for companies, Northrop Grumman, aside, that are smaller, you can sort of extrapolate and take what you want from this as well, because these are all applicable depending on how size the company is. Now, right off the bat, we found for Little Caesars that 86%, and I said 85% was the moving average, 86% of their content on social was untagged, meaning there's no mention of Little Caesars anywhere on the post. I'm actually going to switch into the demo, or the technology, to show you the live stream of content that comes and how it looks like for people to actually look at. This right here, this is the most authentic source of sentiment and messaging around Little Caesars that they have no idea about. Right? People that are hashtagging Little Caesars are either it's customer service, they're trying to get their attention, or there's some other agenda sort of tied to it. This is us right now having a pizza party with Little Caesars and promoting that social media. This is where the power is that they're not seeing today. Now, these are just 3 quick images that we pulled around what these images are. These are untagged photos, and again, these represent the most authentic sort of messaging around Little Caesars. If you look at this first image, it's from Men's Humor magazine, like an online digital publication. 3.3 thousand engagements, 3 million in reach. And reach, by the way, is not just how many followers. There's a lot more science today that we can apply to actually you never know who's actually seeing it, but the most likely viewer we're able to get to, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. So imagine if Little Caesars, within the moment that it happened, knew that this was happening and they jumped in that conversation. Right? Humanizing your brand, allowing you to, as a brand, again, always place your situation in this narrative, but if they jump in and say, hey, thanks for being a fan, here's some free pizza, or love your, we have a new flavor coming out next month, try that. That sort of engagement is what separates 99%, you from everyone else, right? And so this is really their opportunity. Before I go any further, I'm going to pause. Any questions about sort of the build-up or any of this stuff, or does it make sense?
No, quick question.
Yeah.
These images, even though they're lacking a text or a caption or a hashtag, I can see Little Caesars in each one.
Yeah.
Is that what the technology is picking up on?
Exactly.
So the brand name has to be in the photo somewhere. So if someone just posted a picture of pizza, there'd be no way to know it was obviously Little Caesars.
Right.
So it's still picking up on the brand name within the image.
Exactly right. So branding within the image. Now, image recognition today has gone far beyond just logo detection. So we can pick up facial, actually I'll show you guys, we're being in Hollywood, we do a lot of work in movie studios. So at picking actors' faces and understanding how they sort of resonate with different genres of people is something that this is used for now. So another example is, yes, so the answer is yes. Tom Ford fragrances. So we work with Estee Lauder, and if you look at the bottle of cologne for Tom Ford, you can't really pick up the logo right on the bottle. It's embossed, it's very difficult to pick up, but you can pick up the bottle. So Image Rec can actually pick that up and tell you when someone buys it, they're like, I love this cologne, and this person has 500 followers, 5,000 followers, doesn't matter, you're going to capture it right on the spot and know everything about that person from their social media history.
And that's what your technology does.
Yeah, that's right. So now these are some of the people behind this imagery, right? It's one thing to know the content, but who are the people posting it? There is a massive army of ambassadors out there that already have a natural affinity for your brands, no matter how big or small. To understand who they are, what else they're aligned with. So what else in social media are they following, are they talking about? And then use this sort of ambassadorship to get your message out there. You don't have to pay for all this influencer marketing that people talk about. There are people that will happily do it. I promise you, this is what I do day in and day out. And there are people with incredible equity in terms of their social media standing that would love to sort of align with you. Maybe eventually it'll lead to something paid, but early days, there's a lot of people that will do that work for you. And then also understanding through this, who are audiences that you're not going after that you should be. If you in your mind have a predisposition around, I need to go after a certain segment, but then the Little Caesars is like, well, I got this massive audience in Mental Floss, which is sort of this online publication of sort of fun content. Maybe I should start thinking about these types of other sort of genres. I'll go back to Estee Lauder because that's one sort of hot in my mind. Mm-hmm. Their demographic, their target demographic, has never been really hip hop. Okay, it just hasn't, and especially for MAC. So not Estee Lauder, but for MAC, which is one of their big brands. And by looking at MAC's social feed, we found there is a ton of hip hop imagery and fandom and influencers, and they're like, holy shit, we have not even thought about this group. So what messaging, what content, what targeting, so media buys and social buys are we sort of pouring into that? This will allow you to see that, because how else would you see it if you don't sort of think about it in that way? So in image recognition, if you're not thinking about text anymore, so you put that aside, and now you're thinking about authentic content, and what else is in that imagery, you're going to be able to pick up the other associations and consumer trends. So the example is this. For Pizza Hut, we found that number 2 and number 3, other objects, this is not words we picked up, not text, other actual objects within the images was Crazy Bread number 2, Orange Box number 3. Why that matters is because literally, I'll show you this, 2 out of every, let's say 1 out of every 3 images on social for Pizza Hut is the pizza box with the Crazy Bread on it. So it's not people eating pizza, like the actual pizza slices, or that the picture of the guy, like Caesar, like whatever. It's not those things, not storefront, it is the pizza box. So the ability for Pizza Hut to know that and make that box more interactive is massive. So Pizza Hut, as an example, they found this out as well. And I'm going to actually do a little Pizza Hut competitive in a second. So what Pizza Hut did is their box, they're spending a massive chunk of their marketing budget toward making the box come to life. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but you know what is it? The DJ, the spinning of the. Have you guys seen that in the pizza box? So Pizza Hut boxes, if you open it up and you clean the box up from all the pizza crust and all the sauce, it turns into literally you plug it. It's digital. You plug it into your speakers and you can actually turn it into a turntable. It's insane, and it's super low cost. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
That's
right?
Good though.
Yeah, but why would they even think of doing that? Because they know that's what people love. People they're showing the pride of ownership and they're bragging about this product through that box. So anyway, this is the type of thing that you will be able to find. For just because I'm going to keep going back to Estee Lauder because I think it's so fresh, is their top associations was literally number 2 is black, number 3 is bag. So if you think about what you see on social for MAC, it's not the actual products, it's not lipstick, it's not the cosmetics, it's the black bag that people walk into the store with. So if I'm the brand and I know something like that, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to jump all over that, right? It perpetuates sort of that information into making that, promotions, interactive, whatever you think you sort of want to do. Pizza had a great example around it, but there's a lot you can do. Does that make sense? Yeah.
One question.
Yeah.
What about clothing without a logo? Can you recognize that?
So we can, so
like
without
a shirt without a logo?
No. So great question. So visual or image recognition needs visual distinction to be able to pick it up. So whether it's a logo, which it's not an accident that most logos are evolving into being their own unique, right? Because they're trying to be sort of beneficiaries of this type of technology. So a shirt is going to be that shirt's going to look like a lot of different shirts, a lot of different brands. So I can tell you with full sort of candor, that's not going to be picked up. It will be picked up, but along with the other billion shirts, so it's just noise and it's not relevant to you. What you can do though is place, and I always tell to my customers that actually ask that question is, from an industry perspective, you can actually go in there and capture all the different shirts as an example, and then narrow it down to your shirt, where does it fit into the pie of all the other billion shirts? That can be done. I just can't tell you if that's Ralph Lauren, like who the demographic is, where's this stuff I can't do for that, but I can tell you where you fit into the larger visual web.
But is it possible, like women's clothes that have like a pattern or anything? Can you write a code to recognize that pattern? So it.
I'd have to look at at it.
Okay.
It's case by case. Like as an example, for Estee Lauder's got 28 brands. There are a number of them that you think that, I don't think this is going to work because it's just font. Like John Varvatos is an example.
Yeah.
John Varvatos is just font, but we could pick it up. Magic. It's incredible how well we can pick it up, which blows my mind. And there's other brands that are so visually distinct. You're like, they're going to find this. You just can't. So I have to see it, but yeah, case by case. Now, along with that is, with social media, the beauty of it is that you're able to see so much about your consumer, who these people are. Not just the demographics, of course you're going to be able to see that, male, female, by age brackets, but also where else are they living? What else are they eating? What else are they watching? What else do they eat? What else do they wear? This is the single most sort of authentic first-party data around your products or services and your clients' products and services. There's nothing more sort of relevant. So if you're talking about, and I don't know how many of you guys are engaged in media buys or social buys, but this first-party data, there's nothing more impactful for driving that bottom line, right? And I see it on a daily basis because we have a media side of the business too. And the way we do this is we follow how many, what other brands are they following on social media, what other posts are they posting on social media, and we index that, right? So this allows us to see sort of where that lives. Now, talk about co-marketing opportunities for Pizza or Little Caesars, sponsorship opportunities, right? This is sort of where it lives. Competitive. So the ability to understand what does your competition do, not just you. So things like sentiment. So if you have a product that you've just launched, a service you've just launched, and you want to understand is there a positive reaction or negative reaction to that on social, you can do that very easily. And against people that are not tagging your product. And if you want to understand that against your competition, you can do that as well. So now imagine if I don't know, again, I made a comment in the other room. We work with a lot of movie studios in LA. And they start their sort of the visual listening efforts well over a year before a movie actually drops in the theater. And their competition is whatever else movies are dropping that same weekend, they know, and they're like, that's my competition. So what do? Is they literally will use us in a situation like this where they'll have their movie along with all the other movies that are dropping that weekend. And it starts with a movie poster or some sort of virally leaked story online or whatever it is. And however the world and their social media community reacts to it, they'll course correct depending on the success or lack thereof. And they'll also look at what the competition is doing. You can go into every single competitive post and understand from a trend perspective who is loving your competition more than you. Why? What's the messaging around why they love it? You can actually see all this stuff, right? And then you can emulate that or stay away from, depending on how it's working or not. Do you guys, I mean, how much of this is relevant for you guys? Is there any competitive conquesting or thoughts for you around that? Yeah? No, not really.
No, I think it's relevant.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very relevant. I
To
mean,
learn.
yeah. I mean, we have fashion and beauty brands, and so it gets me thinking differently.
Sure. Yeah, and so I was in London 2 weeks ago at their biggest hospitality tech conference.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the CMO of Pizza Hut was our keynote to start the thing. So not the last one, but the first. And I got a little worried because I'm talking about Little Caesars. Now, Little Caesars isn't as prominent out in UK, but still, how she can react. Right after the conference, the first person in my little demo booth was none other than Pizza Hut. Like, let's have a conversation. So I thought it was very interesting because this seems common sense and like this is stuff you should be doing. Guess how many people are actually doing it to this level? Not very much. And by the way, getting this data is one thing, and then making it actionable with a clear purpose of how am I going to make money off this data is another. Right? So it's one thing to be armed with the bullets and the gun, but what if you don't know how to fire the gun? Right? So that's the other sort of layer of this that we can talk about. So that really was what I wanted to sort of discuss with you. There's no more slideware. So how much of this is relevant for your businesses as far as visual web? Because there's 5 things that I want to just recap. The ways you can leverage. Number 1 is consumer trends, right? Understanding the content that's out there on social media around your brand and the people that are actually posting the content. What are they saying? What's the messaging? You can actually literally segment it by ethnicity, however you want to slice and dice you can do, and understand that. So, informing your creatives, your content, all of that is sort of one massive use case. The other is around audience targeting. I showed you the brands, remember the demographics and the affinity audiences. Understanding these are the people I need to target in my media buy, my social buy, in whatever sort of activations I have, you have that level of intelligence. And again, I argue that there's no more authentic audience than that. Because it's social that's not tagged. These are, again, that's us in this room that cares about a brand. The third is around, and I didn't actually mention this, but you can actually go in there and communicate with your audience, so humanize your brand, be there, have the conversation around what you want to evangelize. And say, hey, thanks for loving my pizza or whatever products we represent in this room. Here's some information around something we're doing later on. What do you think? Get direct product feedback. That ability exists today, right? And the visual web enables that for you, right? Instead of these tweets, one-line tweets, and you don't know the context, we get a lot more out of images than we'll ever do out of pure text. So be able to take advantage of that is massive. The ability, I showed you the competitive, right? Understanding not just your competition, but your industry. So I made a comment earlier, if you can't track, if image recognition, you ask me to track this, I'm like, I can't do it. Well, I can tell you how, in the world of folders, sort of where this lives, right? And how are you sort of that trajectory in that industry? So that ability can be done with or without the image rec piece of it. So these are just some of the ways that I think our clients get the most out of the visual web. That's really the crux of what I wanted to go over. Was this valuable? Yeah, please.
Yeah, so this seems really interesting and valuable for a B2C type company.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you could do for B2B, or what would that look like?
Sure. So we can. It's interesting because you're right. It's a very B2C sort of.
Which is great if that's the niche, then that's fine.
Right, but there's also a large conversation on B2B around brands. It's not necessarily consumer. No one is taking pictures of Cisco or Microsoft, and that's a different conversation. But you can understand from an industry perspective where you are in that conversation, because even B2B, there's still an element of exposure that you have on the visual web, and you understand where is it. Is it in front of, if it's, actually give me one example so I can be much more direct.
So we at Digital Telepathy, we kind of have 2 approaches. We try to find clients, so like funded startups and enterprise software companies. So that's the very technical aspect, and that's where we offer our services. But at our hearts, we're a design studio. Okay. So most of our team are designers. We focus on user experience. So we also try to be thought leaders within the design community. But the problem is there isn't really one image. Everything that a designer puts out there is completely authentic.
Yeah.
there isn't a way to visually track that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
It's a difficult one, and you know, I won't profess that this is for everyone or everything. This is, I think, it's very B2C sort of centric in that way. Brands that have a prominence out there. That's what, at the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, I actually, even from non-franchise movies, I get the question. So Ghostbusters 2, that's one thing because there's like following and there's imagery out there. But what about a movie that no one's ever heard of? There is no social following. No one has even heard of it. So can this still be applicable? Again, for B2C, the answer is yes, right? In that regard, because you got to start somewhere. Where are you going to develop a baseline in terms of performance on social if you don't start from zero? So that's one thing that we advocate, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for everyone. We do have some B2C clients that this could be interesting for.
Yeah. And it's super easy. I mean, it's, you know, this is one of the things where I don't want to get into too much of the gum piece. I want to keep this more of the best practices, but whether it's this or others, the price point for this stuff is now it's low. This is not expensive technology to adopt, and the ability for anyone, whether you know social or not, to get very good very quickly around how to take advantage of this. We're trying to bring the data to the forefront. So not here's a graveyard of images. What do I do? But here are the images. Yes, and actually, you know what? Now that we have a second, I will show you what it looks like. So this is where all the content from, I gotta be careful because this is social, sometimes pictures show up that are not, not safe for work, if you know what I mean. So this is real time. So 11:42, you know, what time is it now? So not too long ago, you know, that first picture was posted. This is all Ben and Jerry's content, okay? And I will tell you, if I went through each one of these, and if I start scrolling through what these are saying, somebody's not translating, but the captions and the conversation behind them, there's no Ben and Jerry's commentary. This is the people that love the friggin' ice cream, right? So to be able to go in there and see this and get a top line view of trends. So here's a great example. I'll show you. How many guys followed or heard about Ben and Jerry's coming out publicly around Black Lives Matter a couple weeks ago? So they were very, you heard about that, right? So they were very public about it. And guess what this spike represents on October 7th? Exactly that moment in time. Massive sort of uprising of their fan base, split positive and negative. People going, what the hell are you doing coming out? Others are like, good for you for standing up. And this conversation wasn't around the ice cream. It was fans of the ice cream having a conversation. And for them to be able to understand, have an alert that says, holy crap, like my community, my world is sort of reacting up or down, right? It's massively important for folks, for those types of brands. So again, this is the type of thing that you'd be able to see. And imagine if you had all your competition in the same graph, right? Again, B2C, I'm cognizant, but that's the power of the visual web and specifically of social and how to use a tool like this to get most out of. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
How do you recognize the negative posts and the positive posts?
Text. So we classify against 1,000 positive words, 1,000 negative words. Hate, disgusting, bad, those types of things, and then happy, fun, friendly. And we'll literally the algorithm will put it in context. And if it can't figure it out, it'll put it into, we have neutral as well, which it won't put into either one. So if here's a great point is, if you, customer service, there was a conversation we had earlier in that breakout, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but social media is connective tissue in my mind of every part of a company. Product feedback, where else you want your customer to give you product feedback, where else are you going to get it, right? Operations, revenue generation. We have a lot of agency clients that actually, part of their revenue generation strategy is to do social audits of their prospective clients and say, this is the opportunity living on the table. There are so many different ways that this can be part of the fabric of your company. And one is customer success and account management and service. So if you know what's negative, what's positive, literally categorize them, and then systematically go in there, humanize your brand, get in there, this can be done. You don't need an army of 50, 100 people looking at the screen going, there's a way of doing this real easy that people are starting to catch on to. I love the fact that they came out for Black Lives Matter because this makes my demo thing so powerful. So, anyway, any other questions? Cool. Thank you guys. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.